So this one is now cosecant, which means we're going to be doing a sine function. I'm basically going to be graphing that without that shift up or down. That shift up or down is going to get saved for later. Let's identify all our pieces. We've got an amplitude of 2, no reflection. Our period is 2 pi over 4, or pi halves. There's no phase shift, right? No parentheses means there's no phase shift. We do have a midline change, though. Now it's going to be at y equals 1, but we'll deal with that very, very, very last. All right, let's start labeling stuff. My period is pi halves. So here's 0. I'm going to go out 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be my period. I got to figure out what to count by, so I'm going to take p and divide it by 4. Pi over 2 divided by 4. That's pi over 2 times 1/4, or pi over 8. Here's what I'm counting by. Okay, that's 1 pi over 8. Next would be 2 pi over 8, or pi fourths, 3 pi over 8. And then we've got our period over here, pi halves. Let's see, our amplitude is 2. So we've at least got to go up to 2 and down to -2. All right, now I'm going to graph 2 sine of 4x. I'm not putting that +1 in there. I'm only going to graph the basic sine function. Then I'll make any phase shifts or reflections. Then I'm going to put in asymptotes and cups and do that up and down midline shift very, very last. Promise you it'll save you lots of mistakes. Okay, basic sine function starts at an intercept, ends at an intercept, has an intercept in between, and then it has a maximum and a minimum. Now there's no reflection, so I don't need to do anything with that there. Got my labels, no phase shift. So now I can go in and I can start putting in asymptotes and start flipping stuff. So asymptote right here, because that was an intercept. Intercept right there becomes an asymptote. Intercept right there becomes an asymptote. So I am going to graph with this purple 2 cosecant of 4x. I'm still doing it in stages. This +1, this midline shift, I'm saving that for very, very last. So 2 cosecant of 4x, put in my asymptotes. Here is, let me put that sine graph in there. Here is a maximum, so that becomes an up cup. A minimum, which becomes a down cup, and that is 1 full cycle. Now, one more change we have to make is that midline shift. So I need my new midline to be at y equals 1. Well, it starts at y equals 0, and it's supposed to be up here at y equals 1, which means everybody has to shift up 1. Now, the asymptotes aren't going to change. They're going to stay where they're at. All that's going to change is this point right here, the bottom of the cup, moves up here. That cup just moved up. The top of this cup is going to move up to here, but it still stays a down cup. Literally, you just take the graph, pick it up, shift it up 1, and put it back down. Sometimes it can be hard to see, especially with all the stuff I got going on in here, but that's the basic picture of that graph right there. This whole thing is in the green with the asymptotes. Now notice up here, though, it says to graph 2 periods of it, which means from where I'm at, I need to go out 1, 2, 3, 4 more lines, and I need to label those. Remember, we're counting in pi eighths, so this was 1 pi eighths, 2 pi eighths, 3 pi eighths, 4 pi eighths. This one then will be 5 pi over 8, 6 pi over 8, but that reduces down to 3 pi over 4, 7 pi over 8, which doesn't reduce, and then our 8 pi over 8, which is just pi. So I extended my counting out. That's all I did. Okay, now you can put in your key points. If you have one cycle, it's just a matter of copying it. So I'm going to put my other asymptotes in. Looks like I started with an asymptote, then I went out 2 spots, put an asymptote, 2 spots, put an asymptote, 2 spots, so there's going to be an asymptote here, 2 spots, asymptote there. Okay, then I'm going to go to the rest of it, which was in green. If in this first gap right here between asymptotes there was an up cup and the point was up here at 3, then that means in the next set I'm going to put another up cup. I'm just repeating it, right? And it's going to go from 3 up. Okay, this next group right here was a down cup. It was at 3 pi negative 1. Now I go over here to this other piece, sorry, 3 pi 8, and it's going to go down. A second cycle just means take that first cycle and copy it over. Spacing and everything stays exactly the same. Whether the cups are up or down, whether they are big cups, or sorry, if they're asymptotes, asymptotes just follow the same pattern. So 2 periods is easy to do. Okay, let's try this one. Now I've got, and this is for cosine, right? We've got to graph a basic cosine up here. So I'm going to graph y equals 3 cosine of 4x plus pi. There's no midline shift, so I don't have to worry about that last step. And then I'm going to put in my intercepts and stuff. Asymptotes and cups. Amplitude is 3, no reflection. We've got a period of 2 pi over 4, just pi over 2. This time we do have a phase shift at 4x plus pi equals 0, which happens at negative pi fourths. And then we need to know what we're counting by. So p over 4 pi halves divided by 4 pi halves times 1/4. We're going to count by pi eighths. Okay, I'm going to go out 1, 2, 3, 4 and put my period. I'm going to put the labels down here on the bottom. Whoops, pi halves for the period. I tend to get, it feels squished up in here, and I end up putting dots over the pieces. So pi halves, this was 1 pi eighths, 2 pi eighths, which is actually pi fourths, and then 3 pi over 8. Amplitude of 3 means I need to go up at least to 3 and down to negative 3. All right, basic cosine function. I am starting with y equals 3 cosine of 4x. I'll do the phase shift afterwards. I just find this a little bit easier to start there. So cosine starts at the top, ends at the top, middle is a minimum, intercept, intercept. Okay, there would be my basic cosine graph. Now I'm going to come in and graph with that phase shift in there. Now that phase shift was to go to negative pi fourths, so we need to add some points on our line right here because we've got to go left. We need to go out to negative pi fourths. So right here is negative pi over 8, negative pi over 4. That's these two marks. Remember, it's the same as the right side, it's just in reverse order. Okay, so that phase shift right there says instead of starting up here at 0, 3, that point needs to be over here at my negative pi fourths. Because I moved it 2 spots, that means I need to take all these other points and move them 2 spots over until I get my new cosine graph that has been shifted to the left. I don't even need these orange spots anymore. I don't even need them. right? Those orange spots are obsolete now. They have no effect on anything because I've finished. Oops, it was right there. I finished dealing with that first graph. I went from orange to purple. Now I'm going to take it. I am going to draw that cosine in because it sometimes helps you to see the different cups to make. It's not reflected or anything like that. Then we go in and we're going to graph our actual blue. We're going to graph our final graph, which will be 3 secant of 4x plus pi. So first things first, asymptotes. Let's go a little thicker with a dashed line. Here's an x-intercept. That becomes an asymptote. Here's an x-intercept. That is now an asymptote. Okay, now let's draw our cups in there. This right here was a minimum, so I'm going to take that actual piece right there and flip it upside down, and it becomes a down cup. Now this one up here is half of a maximum, so I'm going to flip it into half of an up cup, and then this side also becomes half of an up cup, and that blue one is your final graph. Now it does say to do 2 cycles of this. Can't see it. 2 periods of it. So we're going to do that whole repeating thing, and it's not too bad. Let's go. I'm going to take my line out first. I'm going to go red, and I'm going to go down here and finish labeling out. Because if I want to go from the end of the graph, which is right here, I need to go out 1, 2, 3, 4 lines to get to the end of another cycle, right? It's always 4 lines. So we had 3 pi 8s, 4 pi 8s, 5 pi over 8, 6 pi over 8, which is 3 pi over 4. And then I'm going to repeat the exact same pattern. Let's start with our asymptotes. So I had a beginning point, maximum, and then an intercept. So I started here. 1 step over was an asymptote. Basically just 2 steps over every time, right? And there's another asymptote right there. So every 2 spaces, every time an asymptote ends, you go 2 more and there's another asymptote. 2 more and there's another asymptote. Okay, now we just have to finish our cups. If it's up here, and that's a half cup right there, then we're going to finish that cup right there. Whoops. That's what I meant to do. So this half a cup now gets to become a full cup. Repeating the process right here, since there's a down cup, there would also be another down cup. And then this last piece, normally it would be just a maximum for a cosine, so it would go up there. If it helps you to draw another cosine in there before you start flipping this stuff, that's fine as well. And then there's no midline shifts. So that would be my final graph.